Welcome to another powerful episode of the Women Warriors podcast, where we uplift and inspire. Today, I am with one of my favorite human beings in the entire world, my very own Dr. Phil. So thank you so much for joining me and being on this platform. You know, Phyllis is a champion of mental health. She is a champion of holistic healing and just a champion of women. If you have ever had the honor of being around her, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. So today you are going to meet her and we're going to dive a little bit into all things women's health, mental health, because guys, if the mental health is not there, nothing else is going to be working, in my opinion, right? But we're going to hear from the doctor. But she is the mind, body, and spirit of being your whole self. So Phyllis, thank you again for being here, for sharing.
Jen, thank you so much for having me. You know, I'd do anything with my women warriors. I love it so much, and this is quite the honor. And that was quite the introduction. Thank you so much. I'm really honored.
Thank you. So I'm jumping right in.
Go right ahead.
So you are, a women's advocate, I feel like, for mental health, a holistic healing, and what exactly is holistic healing? And the reason why I say the holistic is I feel like everyone uses that word and throws it around because it's like the thing to throw around because it sounds better, right? It's like kind of people that say they're vegan,
Exactly.
Throwing words around. So what exactly is holistic?
Holistic, the word holistic, is derived from a psychological term called holism, which refers to a connection between the mind, the body, and the spirit. And when we look at a person, we have to look at the whole being. So it's every component, every facet of a person's existence, including their psyche, their spirituality, what's going on in their mindset, their worldview, their childhood, their consciousness, their cultural background. It includes every facet of a human being. So when we say holistic, it's not just a term we throw around. It's really targeting all aspects of a person. So when we look at it through the lens of such a transpersonal healing, we're looking at treating the whole person and something that's customized and not a one size fits all.
Yes.
And that certainly applies to the beautiful women in our lives.
Yeah. And especially May is women's awareness of mental health, which I just feel like we kind of don't talk about mental health as much as we talk about physical, right? How things look, but it's really inside that exudes everything, right? Your mental health. As a woman who this is your thing, this is your shiz, right? What do you feel like what do women need to know about their mental health? Like if you can sit down to a room full of women, the women that are listening right now, what would you say to them about mental health?
That it's a shift in consciousness, it's a shift in focus. I mean, you're more likely to go to your plastic surgeon or your med spa for Botox than you would to find an amazing therapist, a touchstone for someone who could give you amazing opinions and someone who could treat your whole person and a place to go that's just yours to increase your mental health and wellness.
Yeah, I know it's funny because you're right? Most people, they do not play around about their Botox. Like I have clients every 3 months or every 4 months they go, but I will have conversations with them of burnout or feeling like they can't juggle it all. And it's funny how you say that because it's so true when you sit and think about that. What would you say to a woman that maybe is struggling mentally? Like what do you kind of encounter with your practice?
I think we need to look at why you're not. What are the obstacles? Why are you not seeking mental health? And I think it's cultural. Sometimes women are brought up to believe that we can handle everything, that it's the family first, and then all our needs come after.
Yep.
When the obvious is, we can't fill anybody's cup if our cup is empty.
Yes.
Including workplace burnout. Women are more likely to burn out in the workplace, 37% more than their male counterparts. And when we think about that, we have to think of why. It's also financial. Sometimes people will spend more money on their children or other things and put their own, especially women, put their own mental health needs aside.
Yeah. And it's true because even in general, I'm a mom, right? So I feel
Kids first, family first.
Everything's first, and to where a lot of us moms are always, oh my God, I'm exhausted. I haven't got a pedicure. I haven't took any even quiet time alone, right? What would you say to somebody that, is struggling, that maybe they have that cliche over talking to somebody, right? Because I feel like cultural.
Well, there's a huge stigma around mental health. And having conversations like this, and thank you so much for, a Dr. Phil like me, this is our dream to get on and talk about and bring more awareness to try to crush the identity box that mental health and seeking mental health is something you should be ashamed of,
Yes.
or not taught to really talk about and identify and express your feelings.
Yeah.
And that's something women struggle with too. You know, we're like superwoman. We just want to move on and move on and move on. But it all catches up with you. And one thing I would say is not to be afraid that someone isn't going to change you. You know, change doesn't happen by chance.
Yes,
It like
choice.
happens by choice. And so make the choice, make the decision to put yourself first. If you're struggling, there are reasons why you were struggling. And most of the mental disorders, like anxiety and depression, which are our two highest in the United States, especially for women, 75%, 27%, 27 million women struggle with clinical depression or anxiety in the United States, and that's a 2024 statistic.
Wow.
So this is something we really need to address. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Make the phone call. The same courage it takes to go to bat for your child, to advocate for your child, is the same inner strength that you'll need to just move through the therapy process successfully. Outcomes are successful, and therapy doesn't always equate to medication. It doesn't always have to be long term. There's a therapy right for everybody's financial pocket,
Yes.
and it is extremely accessible to us.
Yeah.
So reach out, ask around, look around, go through Psychology Today, put your zip code in and what insurance you have, and try to find a therapist in your area who's taking people in person,
Yeah.
or if you choose virtual care, doing telehealth. But get the help. Don't avoid it, because it will catch up with you. That's just the way the psyche works. That's the way the spirit works.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone's unhappy, everyone's unhappy.
Yeah, it's true, right? You can't pour from an empty cup, right? So you have to take care of yourself. I feel like for me in my journey, I guess I was always strong, right? Like, because I always seen strong women, right? So I guess where there was times in my life when maybe I was struggling mentally, right? Because life happens. It's so many ups and downs. You don't know how you're going to take things on, right? And you also have people that sometimes they're not as strong as others when going into or getting put into some circumstances that are beyond control, right?
Exactly. And, one of the other things I say is if you were having, you wouldn't get your cardiologist if you were in the midst of having a heart attack. You should already have a cardiologist. It's the same thing with the therapist. Don't wait until you're in crisis to find a therapist. Do it now while things are well, and have a touchstone for you, for your children, for your marriage, for any of your relationships.
Yeah. And I know it's funny, let's talk about marriage, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of couples that probably should have counseling. And again, I think everyone probably should talk to somebody, because I feel like it's good to have a person that is just neutral, right? I always
exactly.
joke around. I said if me and my husband were to ever to go to therapy, I would just sit there because I'm bringing him, not me.
Yes.
Right.
Common mindset.
Right? But I feel like it's healthy to be able to speak with a neutral person. Like, what advice would you give, let's say, to that marriage that the woman and man, or the women and whatever that are married? Like, what do you think? Like, do they need it? Like, should they just have it? Like, what are the perks, or what are the needs?
So when your engine light goes on, you go for car maintenance. Either you go to your dealership or you go to your local mechanic and you get your engine checked. Why not get your marital thermometer checked?
Yeah.
Why not get the gauge of whether or not we have a healthy marriage or a healthy relationship?
Yeah.
Let's find that out now before something happens. And I'm going to say probably over 90% of the couples that I work with, the biggest issue is communication.
Yeah.
So how to talk to each other, how to do it with love, how to do it willingly and lovingly. Everybody's marriage has some sort of tension in it. No relationship is perfect, and we need to crush that box too, that relationships are perfect. Not everything you see on social media is real.
Yes.
Not all the relationships are perfect. So get your marital engine checked before the maintenance light goes on.
Yeah, I love that, because it's just so true. I mean, every time I'm with Phyllis, she only speaks truth. So I'm sitting here learning. This is my session, guys. But as far as now, let's say let's say the younger girls that are on here now, right? So I have a daughter who's 20, right? And we were just talking earlier about I see the difference from when I was 20 versus that she's 20. What do you see their struggles, these younger girls? Or what advice would you give to maybe a mom that wants to help, or to the girl listening?
Well, I think moms first need to understand that our 18 to 25-year-olds, our Gen Zers, are struggling with things we were not struggling with. So they're foreign to us. So we have an understanding because we're watching and because we love and we're empathetic and we're compassionate to our daughters, but we don't really know what it's like to walk in their shoes.
Yes.
Post-COVID, social media, technology, all of the influence of, famous people and celebrities and musicians and artists, even the movies they watch, a lot of issues are very different than what we struggled with.
Yeah.
So it really shows its head in increase in self-injurious behaviors. There's increase in diagnosis of eating disorders, body image issues, suicidal ideation, clinical depression, and anxiety.
Yeah. It's funny because I had to learn how to be a different parent to my daughter, right? I took a lot of the values and the way I grew up and obviously utilized them in my parenting with my daughter, my first daughter. So, I seen her go through COVID. I seen her go through different aspects of her life, right? And I noticed that, exactly what you're saying is that they're growing up in a completely different world than where I was, even though I feel like that wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't, but a lot's changed since then. And information is coming at them at lightning speed, and everything they experience is documented. They always feel like someone's watching them or judging them, and that's a huge problem. It affects your mental health. A lot of social media platforms that they're on, a lot of the group chats and friend groups that they're in, that chips away at their self-esteem and their self-confidence.
Yes.
Those little hits they get, and we can never, ever, ever, ever minimize the effect of a breakup. And, that's not only a romantic or intimate breakup for our Gen Zers, but also with friendships that are over and how to deal with them and how difficult it is. And then you have the set coming up after them who are dealing with just other things, ostracizing and, harassing and bullying the younger set, and what that does to someone's psyche and self-esteem.
I know. And it's crazy because, when we were younger, I feel like there was always bullies, right? You always have mean girls.
Right, but you saw them on the corner on a Friday and you didn't have to see them again until Monday.
Now it's constant, 24/7. And I always say I'm always so grateful that I did not grow up in a world. I am the era of, nobody's allowed on the telephone when you're hooking up to AOL.
Right.
Instant messenger, all the, so.
When you're dialing up. But also we grew up similarly, in little micro neighborhoods in New York. Where we had a lot of support and we had a lot of friends and we were outside the home more and not on any technology. Our screenagers are on screens at least 9.5 hours a day, and none of that is homework. That affects your mental health.
Absolutely.
It affects your brain development.
Yeah, it's so true because it's funny. For me, I have kids at all different ages.
I know.
So that's why I just,
I'm
like, wait, she's talking about all.
I know. And, the social media also has affected them. And post-COVID, too, post-COVID paralysis has really affected their communicative skills, their social skills. I notice a lot of my parents complain about the adolescents that I see, that they want them to do it, like call the doctor and make an appointment, or email, the teacher about a grade. They want the mom to do it. Could you call my coach and tell him we're not coming today? No, you do it. But they don't have those kind of communicative skills that they're lacking.
Yeah. It's so true. And even what you're saying, as far as with social media, the breakups, meaning friendships, because sometimes our friendships breakups are sometimes even harder than that relationship with our significant others, especially as a young person. I remember my first heartbreak. I thought that was the worst thing. I was never going to love again.
But I thought at 14 I was going to marry him.
Yes. My first boyfriend, I thought I was one and done. Yes. Right? Because that's what we think. And it's true. I just feel like kids now, and it's not all kids, but I do feel kids are a little bit meaner from what I remember. I feel like they're very quick to really just I don't even like just
like
unwarranted.
the level of like teasing somebody or like goofing around with your friends
Yes.
has so intensified
Yes.
that it's like they go right for the like heart place.
Yeah.
You know, they go right for the really mean.
Yeah.
And or just stop talking to someone, then tell their friends not to talk to them either.
Yes.
They cut them, they delete them off all their social media, block them from all the group chats, and it's devastating. It's traumatic
Yeah.
for a middle schooler or
Yes.
you know an early teen to experience that loss of friendship, of support.
So for, let's say, a woman that's on right now that maybe their kids are going through this, what advice would you give as far as like, how can they help them navigate? Because I feel like a lot of women now, like our age, to have the younger generation, like some of us mentally don't have what it takes to kind of try to empathize with them.
Sure. Well, they don't want to hear from us. So
Yeah.
when you want to talk to your child, you know, depending on their age, you have to get in and get out. And, you know, say it in like 3 sentences or less. Make your point, you know, because if you start the sentence, when I was your age, they're already tuned out
They're
to
done.
that. Yeah, that's it.
Because
They're
that
done.
was like when the dinosaurs were roaming
Exactly.
the earth.
And
That's
I
it.
would look around for a really good social skills group. I would look for a group of like maybe just an all, you know, we're talking about women's mental health
Yes.
and we're talking about our young daughters.
Yes.
So like a young girls group that works on social skills, on anxiety, on communication, on friendships and relationships, because they'll learn more from each other in a peer situation
Yes.
than they'll be willing to listen or talk to us.
Yeah.
So I would really look for that, and I would get my daughter, honestly, you know I am a therapist, but I would definitely get my child someone to speak to, because they should have someone to trust that's just their person.
Yes.
So that there are things that I didn't want to tell my mom.
Yes.
You know, and
Yeah.
therapy was not something that was encouraged or really discussed in my family. You know, we're Italian, we're New Yorkers. We didn't talk about our feelings. We ate them. You know, Grandma lived in the basement making lasagna.
Yeah.
So for now in 2025, we know so much more. Let's address it. Let me
Yeah.
find, you know, there's customized groups for younger girls. You know, ask around, get your daughter a therapist so she always has someone to talk to, and have that added support, and someone that she's not related to, who's
Yes.
not invested as a relative, but invested in her mental health.
Yeah. Mental health is just so important, you know, and I love that we started off talking about the holistic, right? What it is, and then getting into the mental health, and then getting into the daughters. And, you know, I just feel like there's so many different ways of speaking on mental health. You know, right now that we're in Women's Month, if there's somebody that's on right now, what would you say to them as far as like taking their mental health even more so seriously? Like, what advice?
I think like when we look at holistic, I think we need to get back into our bodies. You know, psycho-spiritual practices like meditation, mindfulness, yoga, you know, they're not just buzzwords. They're out there, you know, and every corner here where we live at the shore is another yoga or mindfulness
Yes.
place. It's there for a reason, because people go, and it's great to meet like-minded women as well, you know, but getting back into your body, listen to your body. Where is the anxiety coming from? You know, where is your stress, your point of stress coming from? Do the deep breathing, get meditated, not medicated, and see a therapist. Seek the help of someone. You deserve it. You're worthy of it. This doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. And everything you need to succeed, to overcome mental illness, is inside of you. You just need someone to help you tap it out sometimes.
Some guidance.
And you are certainly deserving of that. And that's what I would tell people. You're worth it.
Yeah. So you are worth it. No, thank you, Phyllis, so much for joining me today. I feel like I've learned so much, as I do every conversation I have with you.
Thank you so much for having me. Such an honor, such a pleasure, as always.
Thank you. So for anyone that's listening, where could they find you? How can they follow you? If they have questions, where do they go?
Sure. You can follow me on Instagram at Meet the Real Dr. Phil. And my practice is Exhale Healing Arts, and it's in Brielle, New Jersey. And my website is exhalehealingartsllc.com.
Thank you. Phyllis, one last question
Yes.
I ask everyone, because you're on the Women Warriors. What makes you a woman warrior?
Resilience, overcoming obstacles, and being honest with myself. You know, a real warrior is centered. A real warrior is grounded in the truth. So we have to stay real.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Phyllis.
Thank you.
For
Such
today.
a pleasure.
So, guys, make sure to follow, to like, to comment. Make sure to follow Phyllis for any questions. This was so informative and just so inspirational, as always. So guys, thank you so much again for tuning in. Make sure to come on next week as we're going to have somebody else. But make sure to follow Phyllis, because she's going to be someone that's going to be on here a little bit more frequent than others, because we need to talk about mental health. It matters, and like she said, you're worth it.